they're still discussing that.
I thought it was rough in the 23rd century. Back death is back.
Women. I like her. Your chances, 1 in a million.
Can't anything be simple anymore?
Spacehunter Adventures in the Forbidden Zone really kicked things off back in 1983. Picture this scene. I'm 12 years old, sprawled on our scratchy brown carpet, watching Peter Strauss cruise around this crazy alien world in 3D. Those red and blue glasses gave me the worst headache, but I didn't even care. The whole thing feels like Mad Max in space meets Star Wars on a budget. The practical effects were mind-blowing for the time. All these bizarre desert vehicles and weird alien creatures made with rubber and paint. What really sticks in my memory is that sweet synthesizer score echoing through our old wood-paneled living room, and my dad walking in, shaking his head, saying, "What in the world are you watching?" But he ended up sitting down and watching the whole thing with me.
Stranger, you understand?
His suspicion will change. Will come and overwhelm me.
Enemy Mine came out in 1985, and honestly, it changed how I looked at sci-fi forever. This one's about an Earth pilot and an alien pilot who crash land on this harsh planet together. Here's the cool part. They start off as enemies, but have to work together to survive. The alien makeup effects on Louis Gossett Jr. were absolutely incredible. I remember being completely convinced he was a real alien. The movie has these amazing scenes of them learning to communicate and trust each other. The cave where they took shelter felt so real. You could almost feel the dampness and cold. My best friend and I spent weeks trying to recreate the alien language in the movie, driving our parents completely crazy. The scene where they share memories of their homeworld still gives me goosebumps to this day. Quick pause here. Was I the only one who got completely fooled by the practical effects in these 80s movies? Tell me in the comments about a movie that made you believe the impossible when you were young.
For not being nice.
Killing you would be too easy.
Let's party!
The Ice Pirates blasted onto screens in 1984, and let me tell you, this movie is pure chaos in the best possible way. Space pirates stealing ice in a future where water is scarce. Sign me up. I remember watching this at my friend Tommy's sleepover party, and we were all completely hooked. The scene where they're going through the time warp and rapidly aging still gives me the creeps. But what really made this movie special was the robot sword fights. Yeah, you heard that right. Plus, seeing a young Ron Perlman swashbuckling through space was just incredible. We spent the entire next week pretending our bicycles were spaceships, using water guns as ice weapons, and getting totally soaked in the process. Mom wasn't too happy about all the puddles in the garage, but it was worth it.
Well, you heard him. We are now an army.
Is about to happen to them.
Krull from 1983 is like someone threw fantasy and sci-fi into a blender and hit maximum power. The story follows this prince trying to rescue his bride from these alien invaders in a medieval world. The weapon he uses, the glaive, is this 5-pointed throwing star that comes back to him like a boomerang. I begged my parents for a plastic version for months. The fortress of the bad guys teleports to a new location every sunrise, which blew my young mind. The special effects might look cheesy now, but back then, watching that crystal spider web scene in our basement TV room, it felt like pure magic. The Cyclops character made me sleep with the lights on for a week, but I couldn't stop rewatching it on our scratchy VHS copy. Hold up, if you could take one sci-fi weapon from any of these forgotten movies, what would you choose? Krull's glaive was my dream toy back then, but let me know your pick in the comments.
Assassin bomb. They will exploit their most mysterious powers.
Metalstorm, The Destruction of Jared Sin, hit theaters in 1983, and it literally has everything the 80s threw at sci-fi. Post-apocalyptic deserts, cyborg villains, and more lens flares than you can count. I actually found this one at a video rental store's going out of business sale for 99 cents. The scene where they're driving through the Crystal Valley still looks surprisingly good today. The sound of those vehicles echoing through the desert stays with you, and the way they film those chase scenes makes you feel like you're right there in the driver's seat. My brother and I would recreate these scenes with our Star Wars action figures, using Mom's crystal vase collection as the background. Looking back, we probably shouldn't have done that.
If you think I'm bringing that scum up the line, you got the wrong.
Trancers from 1984 is this totally wild ride about a future cop who travels back in time by inhabiting his ancestor's body. The whole concept of going down the line through time just grabbed me as a kid. I first watched this one during a thunderstorm, which made the perfect backdrop for its noir-style atmosphere. The way Jack Death hunts these zombie-like trancers through 1980s Los Angeles is just classic. The film has this amazing punk rock energy mixed with sci-fi elements. I remember trying to copy Jack Death's long coat look by wearing my dad's old trench coat, much to my mom's amusement. The scene where they use that time-stopping watch device had me checking every antique shop I could find, hoping to discover something similar. Plus, Helen Hunt shows up in one of her earliest roles. How cool is that?
Give me a call if you find a Cherry. Cherry 2000.
I'm not a machine.
Cherry 2000 from 1987 is such a unique blend of romance and robot mayhem. Picture this. Melanie Griffith plays this tough-as-nails tracker, helping a guy find a replacement robot wife in post-apocalyptic Nevada. The neon-lit scenes in the abandoned Vegas Strip are pure 80s gold. I watched this one at my cousin's house on a beaten-up VHS tape that we had to adjust the tracking for constantly. The whole concept seemed so bizarre, but somehow worked perfectly. The desert car chases are incredible, with these modified muscle cars tearing through the wasteland. My favorite part was always the robot warehouse scene. Rows and rows of synthetic companions just waiting to be activated. It's like Blade Runner meets Mad Max, but with this weird romantic twist that actually makes you feel something. Quick question for all you treasure hunters. What's the best movie you ever found in a bargain bin or going out of business sale? Drop your lucky finds in the comments below.
Ninja. He has the martial skills to destroy.
We got robots. We got...
Eliminators came out in 1986, and get this, it's about a mandroid, half man, half android, who teams up with a ninja and a scientist to fight bad guys. How this movie isn't more famous is beyond me. The mandroid's lower half was basically a tank, and it was the coolest thing my young mind had ever seen. I remember spending weeks drawing mandroids in my school notebooks, instead of paying attention in math class. The teacher even sent a note home about my excessive robot doodling. Every time the mandroid transformed, my friends and I would lose our minds. We tried building our own mandroid suit using cardboard boxes and my sister's roller skates. It didn't end well. But man, those were some good times. Are you ready for something really out there? Solar Babies from 1986 combines roller skating, post-apocalyptic survival, and a glowing orb named Bodhi. Yeah, you heard that right. This movie has these teenagers skating around a wasteland, playing a high-stakes game that's like a mix between hockey and Quidditch. The first time I saw it was at a birthday party sleepover, and we immediately took our skates to the empty parking lot behind the local grocery store to recreate the games. That magical orb had us all convinced our tennis balls could fly if we just believed hard enough. The way they film those skating sequences makes you feel like you're zooming right alongside them. Even the bad guy's fortress, which was clearly made of painted cardboard and plastic, seemed so menacing through my young eyes. Let me know in the comments what wild movie premise like this one you actually think could work if they remade it today with modern effects. I know I'd watch a high-budget Solar Babies remake. Spacerage from 1985 is this absolute gem that feels like someone's fever dream of what space combat should be. The movie follows these intergalactic gladiators who fight in zero-gravity arenas, and let me tell you, the wire work is hilariously obvious, but somehow makes it even better. I remember renting this one 3 weekends in a row from our local video store, much to the amusement of the store clerk. My friends and I would tie jump ropes to the swing set and try to recreate the zero-gravity fights, which definitely resulted in a few scraped knees. The laser effects looked like they were drawn with neon markers, but that just added to the charm. The scene where they fight in the crystal asteroid field still stands out. We used to hang Christmas ornaments from the ceiling fan to recreate it.
There's going to be a battle out there.
Up the line, they're still discussing that.
The Time Guardian from 1987 is one of those movies that just screams 80s Australia. Carrie Fisher shows up in this wild tale about a city that time travels to escape these cyborg attackers. I first caught this one late night on cable TV when I was supposed to be sleeping. The glow of the TV under my bedroom door definitely got me busted, but it was worth it. The future city looks like it was built from cardboard and Christmas lights, but somehow that makes it even more magical. There's this amazing scene where the city materializes in the outback that had me glued to the screen. For weeks after, I kept building time-traveling cities out of Legos in my room, complete with sound effects I made myself. Quick question for all you night owls. What's the weirdest sci-fi movie you discovered during a late-night viewing session? Share your late-night movie discovery stories below. Dead End Drive. In from 1986, takes the prize for most bonkers premise. It's about this drive-in theater that's actually a prison for society's unwanted teenagers. The government just traps them there with endless movies, junk food, and no responsibility. When I finally tracked this down at a video store going out of business sale, I watched it with my older sister, who kept saying, "This kinda makes sense, actually." The way they film the drive-in at night, with all those neon lights and classic cars, just captures this perfect retro future vibe. Every time I pass an abandoned drive-in now, I think about this movie. We actually tried to convince our parents to let us sleep in the car at a real drive-in after watching this. They weren't exactly thrilled with that idea. Speaking of absolute insanity, let's talk about Future Hunters from 1986. Imagine a movie that starts in a post-apocalyptic future, then involves time travel back to the 1980s, and somehow ends up including martial arts, Nazis, and a search for the Spear of Destiny. I remember watching this on a fuzzy TV with terrible reception, which honestly probably made it better. The fight scenes are completely over the top, especially when they encounter this monastery of Kung Fu monks. My best friend and I spent an entire summer vacation trying to learn martial arts moves from this movie, using pool noodles as ancient weapons. Mom banned us from watching it again after we broke her favorite lamp during a particularly enthusiastic training session. Tell me your best watching movies at grandparents' house story. Bonus points if it involves their ancient VCR that somehow worked better than any modern tech.
Where would you go?
The stars! You will need ID, let's be real.
Night of the Comet from 1984 has got to be one of the most unique takes on the end of the world ever. A mysterious comet turns most of humanity into red dust, leaving only a few survivors, including these totally awesome Valley Girl sisters who have to fight zombies and evil scientists. I watched this for the first time during a sleepover at my friend's house, and we spent the entire night peering out the window, hoping to see a comet. The scene where they're playing arcade games in the empty shopping mall is just pure magic. For months after, my sister and I would pretend the local mall was our post-apocalyptic playground. We'd walk around pretending to shoot zombies with our finger guns until security would inevitably ask us to leave. Megaforce from 1982 is literally the most 80s thing ever created. Picture this: Barry Bostwick leading an elite team of international super soldiers who ride flying motorcycles while wearing golden spandex suits. First saw this at a $1 theater double feature, and the whole audience was cheering during the motorcycle scenes. I spent weeks trying to convince my parents that our dirt bike needed the same gold paint job as the ones in the movie. The theme song got stuck in my head for months. I still catch myself humming it sometimes. There's this incredible scene where Bostwick's character flies his motorcycle onto a moving plane, and he gives this thumbs up that became our school's secret cool guy signal for at least a year. Quick pause. Anyone else try to recreate movie scenes as a kid? What was your most ambitious attempt? Mine was obviously the zero-gravity fights, but I bet you've got some good stories. You've got The Galaxy Invader from 1985. This movie looks like it was made for about $50 in someone's backyard, and that's exactly why it's amazing. There's this alien crash landing in rural Maryland, and instead of some high-tech military response, it's just these local folks trying to catch it with farming equipment. I found this one late night on cable when I couldn't sleep, and it felt like I'd discovered some kind of secret treasure. The alien costume is literally just some green rubber suit with ping pong balls for eyes, but somehow it works. My dad walked in during the climactic chase scene and just stood there, mouth open, trying to figure out what in the world I was watching. We still quote the hilariously bad dialogue at family gatherings.
Must fight hostile tribes on Earth.
You're the Hunter from the Future from 1983 is what you'd get if you threw Conan the Barbarian into a sci-fi blender. Get this. It starts as a prehistoric adventure with this muscle-bound hero fighting dinosaurs, but then suddenly transforms into a laser-filled sci-fi epic. I remember staying up way too late to watch this on Monster Movie Night, and my mind was completely blown when the robots showed up. The scene where Yor hangs glides using a dead pterodactyl skin had me and my brother attempting to make wings out of old bedsheets. Mom wasn't too happy about the holes we cut in them. The synthesizer soundtrack is so incredibly 80s it hurts, and I may or may not have recorded it on a cassette tape by holding my recorder up to the TV speaker.
They want to know what you've done with your friend.
God.
Wavelength from 1983 feels like E.T.'s cooler, edgier cousin. It follows this sound engineer who discovers aliens being held captive in a secret government facility. The way they used sound effects and electronic music in this movie totally changed how I listened to my dad's synthesizer collection. I remember trying to recreate the alien communication sounds by messing with my Casio keyboard for hours. The escape scene, where they're driving through the desert with these glowing aliens in the back seat, had this amazing purple and blue lighting that made every night drive feel magical afterward. My best friend and I spent an entire summer building a government facility out of refrigerator boxes in his garage, complete with Christmas lights as alien pods. By the way, if you're still watching, comment with VHS forever if you remember having to adjust the tracking to watch your favorite movies. What movie did you watch so many times you actually wore out the tape?
And stimulate me. Stimulate like sex.
I'm driving him crazy.
Android from 1982 rounds out our list with this amazing story about an android who works on a space station and dreams of being human. You guys, a young Klaus Kinski plays the mad scientist. I discovered this one at a sci-fi convention screening, and the whole audience was cheering for the android by the end. The practical effects for the robots might look dated now, but they have this incredible retro-chrome aesthetic that just works. There's this scene where the android tries to learn how to dance that's both hilarious and heartbreaking. For weeks after watching it, I kept trying to move like a robot while doing everyday things, which definitely got me some weird looks at school. The space station sets were obviously just painted plywood and plastic, but somehow that made it feel even more special. So that's our complete list of 20 forgotten sci-fi treasures from the 1980s. Each one of these movies might have been made on a shoestring budget, but they're packed with more imagination and heart than most modern blockbusters. If you enjoyed this totally radical trip down memory lane, smash that like button and subscribe for more nostalgic deep dives. And hey, share your own memories of these forgotten classics in the comments below. I want to hear every wild detail. What obscure 80s movies should we cover next? Drop those suggestions in the comments.